But the aliens didn't know everything about humanity. For the past 10 years, human scientists had been working on something revolutionary: quantum stealth, technology that could make their ships completely invisible to alien sensors. It was humanity's greatest secret, and today, Haiyan-Wu was about to use it. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, chaos was erupting aboard the Velthari command station. The massive space station orbited around Zarian Prime, the capital world of their empire. It was supposed to be the most secure location in the galaxy, protected by energy shields and surrounded by hundreds of warships. Admiral Zexthera stood in the center of the command bridge, his 6 arms moving frantically across different control panels. He was a typical Velthari, tall as a human, but much thinner, with gray skin and multiple limbs that could operate several systems at once. His species had evolved to be perfect multitaskers, which made them excellent at managing their vast empire. "Admiral," shouted one of his officers, a younger Velthari, with bright yellow markings on his face. "Our sensors are detecting something impossible. There appears to be a human vessel approaching our outer defense perimeter." Zexthera's 4 eyes narrowed as he stared at the sensor display. "That cannot be correct. Human ships are primitive metal boxes powered by chemical rockets. They barely have the technology to reach their own moon, let alone travel to our capital system." But the sensors didn't lie. Something was definitely out there, moving toward their most heavily defended space. The strange part was that it kept appearing and disappearing on their screens, like a ghost flickering in and out of existence. "Run a full diagnostic on all sensor arrays," Zexthera ordered. This must be some kind of equipment malfunction. The diagnostic came back clean. All sensors were working perfectly, yet the mysterious contact continued to move closer. Sometimes visible, sometimes not. But always advancing toward the heart of the Velthari Empire, back on the Shadow Strike. Haiyan-Wu stared at the tactical display, showing Zarian Prime growing larger ahead of them. His ship was using quantum stealth technology that bent light and energy around the hull, making them effectively invisible. But the system required enormous amounts of power and could only be used for short periods. "Captain," said his communications officer Jiho, receiving multiple scan attempts from the alien defense stations. "They know something is here, but they can't get a clear lock." Haiyan-Wu nodded grimly. "And why?" Everything was going according to plan, but that didn't make this mission any less dangerous. He thought back to the promise he had made to his father on his deathbed 3 years ago. "Take care of your brother," his father had whispered, his hand gripping Haiyan-Wu's with surprising strength. "He's reckless and brave, just like you were at his age. Promise me you'll keep him safe." Haiyan-Wu had promised, but now he had failed. Taemin was somewhere in that alien system, probably in a prison cell or worse. The thought made his chest tighten with guilt and anger. "Sir," came another voice from behind him. It was Minho, his chief engineer. "The stealth system is holding steady, but we're at 70% power consumption. If we keep this up much longer, we'll start draining our main engines." "How long can we maintain stealth?" Haiyan-Wu asked. "Maybe another hour at full power, 2 hours if we reduce speed." Hour wasn't much time to penetrate the most heavily defended system in the galaxy, rescue his brother, and escape. But it would have to be enough. On the Velthari command station, Admiral Zexthera was getting more frustrated by the minute. His officers had confirmed that something was definitely approaching their system, but their most advanced sensors couldn't identify what it was. "Could it be some kind of natural phenomenon?" suggested one of his subordinates. "Perhaps a comet with unusual mineral composition." "Comets don't change course every few minutes," Zexthera replied sharply. "This is clearly artificial. But how can primitive humans possess technology that our sensors cannot detect?" The truth was more terrifying than he could imagine.
Ow.
While the Velthari had spent centuries perfecting their existing technology, humans had been forced to innovate with limited resources. Sometimes, necessity really was the mother of invention. As alarms continued to sound throughout the alien command station, Haiyan-Wu prepared for the most important mission of his life. His brother was counting on him. He wouldn't let Taemin down again. Admiral Zexthera moved through the corridors of his command station with quick, nervous steps. His 6 arms carried multiple data tablets, each one filled with intelligence. Reports about humanity that now seemed completely wrong. For the past hour, his best scientists and military advisors had been reviewing everything they knew about the primitive species from Earth, trying to understand how a human ship had penetrated their defenses. "Show me the files again," Zexthera demanded as he entered the intelligence briefing room. The walls immediately lit up with holographic displays showing human technology from the past 50 years. What he saw made him even more confused. The images showed crude metal rockets launching from Earth's surface, belching fire and smoke like ancient volcanoes. Human spacecraft looked like flying scrap metal compared to the sleek, energy-powered vessels of the Valtheri Empire. Their weapons were even more primitive, simple kinetic projectiles that used chemical explosions to propel metal bullets. It was the kind of technology the Valtheri had abandoned thousands of years ago. "Look at this," Zexthera said, pointing one of his long fingers at a display showing a human fighter plane. "They still use combustion engines. Combustion engines. They burn fossil fuels to create thrust, like savage creatures making fire in caves. How did these barbarians even manage to reach space, let alone travel between star systems?" His intelligence chief, a female Velthari named Kexlia, pulled up more files. "Our surveillance shows they've been using the same basic technology for decades, Admiral. Chemical rockets, metal hulls, ballistic weapons. Their most advanced ships are essentially flying metal boxes with nuclear reactors. They haven't even mastered energy shielding or plasma weapons." The room filled with the clicking sounds that Velthari made when they were amused, the equivalent of human laughter. To them, humanity looked like children playing with dangerous toys, somehow managing not to blow themselves up long enough to reach the stars. "Perhaps," suggested another officer, "this ghost ship we're detecting isn't human at all. Maybe it belongs to another species that's simply trying to confuse us." But Zexthera sensors had detected trace elements that were definitely from human technology. Somehow impossibly, these primitive creatures had developed something that could fool the most advanced detection systems in the galaxy. Meanwhile, aboard the Shadow Strike, Chief Engineer Minho stood in front of his nervous crew in the main engineering bay. The room hummed with the quiet power of human technology, not the flashy energy displays that aliens loved, but solid, reliable machines that had been tested in the harshest conditions Earth could provide. "No, you're all scared," Minho said, looking at the young faces around him. Most of his engineering team was barely out of college, brilliant minds who had volunteered for this dangerous mission. "The aliens think we're primitive, and maybe they're right about some things. Our ships don't have energy shields that can stop plasma bolts. We don't have weapons that can disintegrate matter at the atomic level." A young engineer named Sung Min raised his hand. "Then how are we supposed to fight them, sir? Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours." Minho smiled, the kind of smile that came from knowing a secret that would change everything. "That's exactly the point, Sung Min. They're so advanced that they've forgotten how to deal with simple solutions. Let me show you something." He activated a holographic display that showed the design of Velthari energy shields. The complex patterns of force fields were beautiful, capable of deflecting plasma bolts, laser beams, and any kind of energy weapon. They had been perfected over centuries of warfare against other advanced species. "These shields are incredible," Minho continued. "They can stop almost any energy-based attack. But do you know what they can't stop? A simple metal bullet moving at high speed." The crew looked confused. Bullets seemed so primitive compared to the advanced weapons they had seen in alien technology files. Captain Hyenwu floated quietly in the command chair of his battleship at the UES Shadow Strike, deep in the dark void of space. The stars around him looked peaceful, but peace was the last thing on his mind. Years ago, his life had been normal. He was just another patrol captain, keeping watch over humanity's outer colonies. But everything changed when that encrypted message arrived. The holographic display flickered to life in front of him, showing the face of Admiral Chen Bak. On Earth, her expression was grim, the kind of look that meant someone was about to deliver terrible news. "Captain Hyenwu," she had said, her voice heavy with regret. "I'm sorry to inform you that your brother Taemin's reconnaissance ship went missing during a routine scouting mission." We have reason to believe he was captured by the Valtheri Empire. Those words hit Hyenwu like a physical blow. Taemin, his younger brother by 5 years, was supposed to be safe on routine patrol duty. The kid was brilliant, one of the best pilots in the human fleet, but he was still just 23 years old. Now, he was somewhere in alien hands, probably being tortured or worse. The Valtheri Empire had been watching humanity for decades, treating them like curious insects under a microscope. To the aliens, humans were primitive creatures who had barely learned to leave their home planet. They had advanced technology that humans could only dream of: energy shields, plasma weapons, faster-than-light travel that made human ships look like ancient rockets. The Empire controlled hundreds of worlds across the galaxy, and they saw Earth as nothing more than an interesting zoo exhibit. Think about it this way, Minho explained. Energy shields are designed to deflect energy. A bullet isn't energy, it's just solid matter moving really, really fast. To their shields, a bullet might as well be invisible. He pulled up another display showing the Shadow Strike's main weapons, railguns that used electromagnetic fields to accelerate metal projectiles to incredible speeds. Our railguns can fire tungsten slugs at nearly the speed of light. When something that dense hits a target at that velocity, it doesn't matter how advanced their armor is. Basic physics takes over. Ship's artificial intelligence, Arya, materialized as a blue hologram in the center of the room. Unlike the flashy AI systems that aliens used, Arya looked simple, just a basic human figure made of light. But her mind was incredibly sophisticated. It's designed using quantum computing principles that the Valtheri had never explored. Captain Minho is correct, Arya said in a calm female voice. I have been analyzing Valtheri technology for the past 8 months, studying every piece of intelligence we've gathered. Their energy-based defenses have a fundamental weakness. They cannot effectively stop kinetic weapons. She displayed tactical data showing Valthari ship designs. Their vessels are built around the assumption that all threats will be energy-based. Their hulls are designed to channel and disperse heat and electromagnetic radiation. But they're actually quite fragile against physical impacts. Young Sungmin's eyes widened as he began to understand. So while they were perfecting energy weapons, we kept improving our kinetic weapons. And now we have weapons they can't defend against. Minho finished. It's like bringing a gun to a sword fight, except they think guns are too primitive to be dangerous. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the Shadow Strike. Captain Hyenwu's voice came over the intercom. All hands to battle stations. We've been detected by 3 Volthari patrol ships. It's time to see if our theories work in practice. The crew rushed to their positions as the ship's stealth system flickered off. Through the viewports, they could see 3 sleek alien vessels. Approaching, their hulls glowing with energy shields and plasma weapons charging to fire. Arya, Hyenwu's voice called from the bridge. Target the lead ship with railgun batteries 1 and 2. Let's show them what primitive human engineering can do. The Shadow Strike's railguns were almost silent when they fired. Just a brief electromagnetic pulse and a flash of light. But the results were spectacular. Tungsten slugs, each weighing only a few pounds, but moving at incredible speed, struck the lead Valthari ship's energy shields. The shields flared briefly, trying to deflect what they thought was an energy weapon. But solid matter couldn't be deflected like a laser beam. The slugs passed through the energy barriers like they weren't even there, punching clean holes through the alien ship's hull. The first patrol ship exploded in a brilliant flash as its fusion reactor was breached. The second ship tried to maneuver away, but 2 more railgun rounds caught it, amidships, tearing it apart like paper. The third ship managed to fire its plasma weapons at the Shadow Strike. But human adaptive armor simply absorbed the energy and channeled it into their power systems. When the human ship fired back, the alien vessel didn't even have time to send a distress signal in less than 30 seconds. 3 advanced alien warships had been reduced to floating debris. The crew of the Shadow Strike stared in amazement at what their primitive weapons had accomplished. Well, said Minho, with satisfaction, I think we just proved that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The battle was over, but the war for humanity's future was just beginning. The transport shuttle detached from the Shadow strike like a small metal fish swimming away from its mother. Captain Hien-Woo gripped the controls tightly as they descended toward the surface of Zarian Prime, the capital world of the Velthari Empire. The planet below looked beautiful from space, swirling clouds of purple and gold around a world covered in gleaming cities. But Hien-Woo knew that somewhere down there his brother was suffering in an alien prison. "Stealth field is holding steady," reported Song-ho from the seat behind him. The demolitions expert was a short, stocky man with calloused hands and scars. From handling explosives for 15 years, his specialty was making things disappear in very loud, very final ways. "But we've only got about 2 hours of power left in these suits." Hien-Woo looked down at his own adaptive camouflage suit. The technology was incredible, tiny cameras and projectors, built into the fabric that could make the wearer nearly invisible by projecting images of whatever was behind them. It was like wearing a piece of science fiction, but the power cells were still limited by human technology. 2 hours is plenty of time," said Yoonji, the team's medic, though her voice sounded nervous. She was young, maybe 25, with gentle hands that had saved dozens of lives during the colonial wars, but she had never been on a mission like this before. "Get in, find Taemin, get out. Simple." Nothing about this mission was simple, but Hien-Woo didn't want to worry his team more than they already were. The prison complex ahead of them looked like something from a nightmare, massive black structure that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Twisted spires reached toward the sky like claws, and the whole building pulsed with an eerie blue energy. They landed in a maintenance area behind the prison, where large alien machines hummed and clicked as they processed waste and recycled air. The sounds were strange and unsettling, not like human machinery at all. Everything about Velthari technology seemed organic, as if their machines were somehow alive. "Camouflage systems activated," Song-ho whispered as they stepped out of the shuttle. Immediately, their suits began projecting images of the surrounding area. At anyone watching, they would look like empty space, as long as they moved slowly and carefully. The first challenge was getting inside the prison. The main entrance was heavily guarded by tall Velthari soldiers carrying plasma rifles. But Hien-Woo had studied the building plans that human intelligence had gathered over months of secret surveillance. There was a maintenance tunnel that led directly into the lower levels. They crawled through the tunnel for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 20 minutes. The space was barely wide enough for a human, and filled with alien pipes and cables that sparked with strange energy. Yoonji had to stop twice to treat cuts on her hands from sharp metal edges. "I'm picking up biosignatures ahead," Song-ho reported. Checking his scanner, definitely human. "Multiple contacts, but they're weak. Very weak." Hien-Woo's heart pounded as they reached the end of the tunnel and carefully removed a maintenance grate. They were inside the prison now, in a corridor lined with cells. The walls were made of some kind of black metal that seemed to absorb sound, making everything eerily quiet. The first cell they checked was empty, but showed signs of recent occupation. Scratches on the walls, dried blood on the floor. The second cell contained an elderly man from one of the outer colonies, barely conscious and covered in strange burns. Yoonji quickly checked his pulse and shook her head sadly. "He's been here too long," she whispered. "Whatever they did to him... They found Taemin in the 7th cell they checked. Hien-Woo's younger brother was strapped to a metal table, his head covered in strange alien devices that pulsed with blue light. He was unconscious, but his eyes moved rapidly under closed lids, as if he was having intense dreams or nightmares. "Taemin," Hien-Woo whispered urgently, but his brother didn't respond. The alien devices seemed to be connected directly to his brain through small holes drilled in his skull. The sight made Hien-Woo feel sick with rage. Eung immediately began examining the equipment. "This is horrible," she said, her hands shaking as she worked. "They're not just torturing him, they're studying him. These machines are monitoring his brain activity, measuring his responses to different stimuli." She pulled out her medical scanner and ran it over Taemin's body. The results made her gasp. "Captain, you need to see this. They've been injecting him with different compounds, testing how human brain chemistry reacts to various drugs. And look at these neural readings. They're trying to understand how humans think differently from other species." As she spoke, Youngji carefully began disconnecting the alien devices from Taemin's head. Each removal caused him to twitch and moan softly, but gradually his breathing became more normal. The aliens are fascinated by human unpredictability, she continued. Their own minds work in very logical, predictable patterns. But humans can be creative, irrational, willing to sacrifice themselves for others. They can't understand it, so they're trying to study it. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the prison. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and they could hear the sound of running feet and shouting voices in the alien language. "We've been discovered," Sang-ho said grimly, pulling explosives from his pack. "Must have been motion sensors we couldn't detect." The first Valthari guards appeared at the end of the corridor, tall. Thin creatures with multiple arms and glowing weapons. They moved in perfect formation, like a military drill team, their plasma rifles charging with deadly energy. But human tactics were different from alien tactics. Instead of forming an organized line, Sang-ho immediately dove to one side while throwing a smoke grenade. Hyen-woo rolled in the opposite direction, firing his kinetic rifle in short, controlled bursts. The aliens' energy shields deflected most. Attacks they had ever faced, but human bullets punched right through them. The first alien fell with a look of complete surprise on his face. The others tried to adjust their formation, but humans didn't fight like any species they had encountered before. When Young-ji, despite being a medic, proved she could handle a weapon when she had to. She positioned herself to protect the unconscious Taemin while laying down covering fire. "They're trying to surround us," Sang-ho called out. "I can hear more coming from both directions." "Then we don't go around them," Hyen-woo replied. "We go through them." He activated his suit's camouflage and disappeared from view. The aliens had never fought an enemy that could become invisible. He fired at empty air, while Hyen-woo moved between them like a ghost, taking them down one by one with precise shots. Sang-ho used the confusion to place charges on the prison's main power conduits. When they exploded, the entire facility plunged into darkness. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls. But the humans had night vision equipment, while the aliens struggled to see. "The path to the shuttle is clear," Youngji reported, supporting the semi-conscious Taemin, "but barely. We need to move now." As they fought their way through corridors filled with confused alien guards, Hyen-woo realized something important. The Valthari were individually stronger and more technologically advanced than humans, but they had never learned to work as a team the way humans did. Each alien fought for himself, trying to avoid personal risk. Humans, on the other hand, would throw themselves into danger to protect their teammates. When Sang-ho was pinned down by enemy fire, Hyen-woo and Yoon-ji immediately moved to help him, even though it put them at risk. When Yoon-ji stumbled while carrying Taemin, both men instantly covered her retreat. The aliens couldn't understand this behavior. It seemed illogical to risk multiple lives to save one person. For humans, it was the most natural thing in the world. 20 minutes later, their shuttle lifted off from the prison complex, leaving behind a facility in chaos and ruins. Taemin was safe, but barely alive. They had learned something terrifying about the aliens. Plans for humanity. The war was just beginning. Taemin's eyes fluttered open as the medical bay's lights dimmed to a comfortable level. His head felt like it had been hit by a meteor, and strange images kept flashing through his mind, memories of alien experiments. The smell of burning circuits, and the sound of his brother's voice calling his name through a haze of pain. He tried to sit up, but gentle hands pushed him back down onto the medical bed. "Easy there, little brother," Hyen-woo said, his voice filled with relief and exhaustion. "You've been through hell, but you're safe now. We're back aboard the Shadow Strike." Taemin looked around the familiar medical bay, trying to make sense of what had happened. The last clear memory he had was his reconnaissance ship being surrounded by Valthari vessels near their capital system. Everything after that was a blur of torture, experiments, and nightmares. "How long was I?" he started to ask, but his throat felt like sandpaper. 3 days, Yoon-ji said, handing him a cup of water. "The aliens had you for 3 days, but we've been traveling for another 2 since the rescue. You were in pretty bad shape." As Taemin drank the water, he noticed something strange. Through the medical bay's viewport, he could see stars, but they didn't look right. There were too many ships moving between them. Human ships, dozens of them, all running dark and silent like ghosts in the void. "Hien-Wu," he said slowly. "What's going on out there? How many ships are with us?" His older brother smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of expression someone makes when they're about to reveal a secret that changes everything. "That's what I need to tell you, Taemin. What you're seeing out there, this isn't just a rescue mission. It's the beginning of something much bigger." Hien-Wu activated a holographic display that showed the local star systems. What Taemin saw made his blood run cold. The display showed hundreds of human ships spread across Velthari space, each one marked with stealth indicators showing they were invisible to alien sensors. "This is impossible," Taemin whispered. "We don't have this many ships. The entire human fleet is maybe 50 vessels, and most of them are protecting the colonies." "That's what we wanted everyone to think," Hien-Wu replied. "For the past 5 years, while the Velthari were watching our primitive activities on Earth, we've been building a secret fleet. Every colony, every mining station, every research outpost has been contributing resources and personnel. We've been preparing for this day." Communications Officer Ji-Ho entered the medical bay carrying a data pad and wearing the excited expression of someone who had just solved a complex puzzle. "Captain, I've finished analyzing the intelligence data we gathered from the prison complex. You're going to want to see this." Ji-Ho was a thin, nervous man who spent most of his time hunched over computer screens, but his mind was brilliant when it came to understanding alien technology. He had been the one to figure out how to hack into Velthari communication systems without being detected. Taemin, Ji-Ho said, "What I'm about to show you might shock you, but it explains how we've been able to do the impossible. The Velthari have been spying on Earth for decades, thinking they were gathering intelligence on primitive humans. But what they didn't realize is that we were spying on them right back." He activated his datapad, showing complex diagrams of alien technology. "Every time they sent a probe to observe our planet, we captured it. Every time they intercepted our communications, we analyzed their interception methods. Every time they thought they were learning about us, we were actually learning about them." Taemin stared at the diagrams, trying to understand what he was seeing. "You mean we've been studying their technology this whole time?" "Not just studying it," Ji-Ho replied excitedly. "We've been reverse engineering it, improving it, and finding ways to use their own systems against them. Look at this." The display showed a Velthari monitoring station, one of hundreds scattered throughout the galaxy to keep watch on primitive species, but the image was labeled with human technical annotations, showing power sources, communication arrays, and security weaknesses. "We've been accessing their monitoring network for 3 years, Ji-Ho continued. Every time they spy on a human colony, we're watching them do it. We know the location of every Velthari military base, every patrol route, every defensive position. They think they're the ones gathering intelligence, but we've been 10 steps ahead of them the entire time." Suddenly, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "All senior officers to the bridge," came the voice of the ship's AI, Arya. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral So-young aboard the UES Defiance." Hien-Wu helped his brother too, his feet, and together they made their way to the bridge. Taemin was still weak, but he was determined to understand what was happening to his species and his galaxy, the Bridge of the Shadow. Strike was smaller than the command centers on alien ships, but it was filled with the quiet efficiency that characterized human technology. Screens showed tactical displays, communication arrays, and sensor readings from dozens of human vessels spread across the star system. Admiral on screen announced the communications officer. The main display flickered to life, showing the face of Admiral So-young. She was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind her, Taemin could see the Bridge of the Defiance, humanity's newest and most advanced battleship. "Captain Hien-Wu," Admiral So-young said, "I'm pleased to see your rescue mission was successful. How is your brother?" "Recovering, Admiral," Hien-Wu replied, "but he's learned some disturbing things about what the Velthari are doing to human prisoners. They're not just torturing them, they're studying them, trying to understand how human minds work." Admiral So-young's expression grew grim. "That confirms our worst fears. The aliens aren't just treating us as primitives to be ignored. see us as a potential threat, and they're trying to understand our psychology so they can control us. She paused, looking directly at Taman through the screen. Young man, what you experienced in that prison was terrible, but it may have saved our entire species. The intelligence you've provided has given us the final piece of the puzzle we needed. I don't understand, Admiral. What puzzle? The puzzle of how to defeat an enemy that's technologically superior in every way, So-Young replied. The answer isn't better weapons or stronger shields. It's better strategy, better timing, and better understanding of your enemies. Weaknesses. She gestured to someone off-screen, and the display changed to show a galactic map. Taman gasped as he saw the true scope of human operations. There were human ships positioned around every major Velthari world, invisible to their sensors, but ready to strike at a moment's notice. For months, we've been moving ships into position using the same stealth technology that brought you here, Admiral So-Young continued. The Velthari have been so focused on their energy-based sensors that they never developed ways to detect. Our quantum stealth systems, they literally cannot see us coming. But how is this possible, Taman asked. We're just one species on one planet. They control hundreds of worlds. That's exactly why this will work, the Admiral replied. They control hundreds of worlds, which means they have to spread their forces thin to maintain order. But all their military coordination comes from a few central command centers. If we can disable those centers simultaneously, their entire empire becomes paralyzed, Haiyan-Wu finished. Without central coordination, their individual fleets will be confused and disorganized. Admiral So-Young nodded. Velthari have never faced an enemy like humanity. They've conquered other species through technological superiority, but we're using strategy, deception, and careful planning. We're fighting a war of intelligence rather than a war of firepower. When do we begin? Haiyan-Wu asked. We already have, the Admiral replied. In 6 hours, every human ship in the galaxy will simultaneously decloak and begin operations. The Velthari will wake up to find human vessels surrounding their most important worlds. They'll realize that the primitive species they've been ignoring has been preparing for this moment for years. As the transmission ended, Taman looked out at the stars with new understanding. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting to prove that. Intelligence and determination could overcome any technological advantage. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Zexthera stood frozen in the center of his command, bridge as chaos erupted around him. For the first time in his 60-year military career, he felt genuine fear crawling up his spine like ice water. The massive holographic displays that surrounded him were lighting up with red warning signals, faster than his 4 eyes could follow. Each alarm represented something that should have been impossible, Admiral, shouted his communications officer, her voice cracking with panic. We're receiving reports from the Keelix system. 3 human battleships have appeared around our main military academy. They came out of nowhere. Before Zexthera could respond, another officer called out from across the bridge. Sir, the mining colonies in Sector 7 are reporting human vessels surrounding their orbital platforms. Our defense fleets are requesting immediate assistance. The reports kept coming, each one more impossible than the last. Human ships were materializing around Velthari worlds throughout the galaxy, appearing like ghosts that had suddenly decided to become solid. The Empire's most advanced sensor networks, designed to detect threats from thousands of light years away, had given no warning at all. How many ships are we talking about? Zexthera demanded, his 6 arms moving frantically across different control panels as he tried to make sense of the situation. His tactical officer, a young male with distinctive blue markings on his face, was staring at his screens with the expression of someone who couldn't believe what he was seeing. Admiral, preliminary counts suggest it's hundreds of human vessels, maybe thousands. They're positioned around every major population center, every military base, every industrial facility in the Empire. The number hit Zexthera like a physical blow. Thousands of ships. The humans weren't supposed to have thousands of ships, according to all their intelligence reports. The entire human fleet consisted of maybe 50 primitive vessels scattered across a few dozen colonies. How could a species that had barely learned to leave their home planet suddenly deploy a fleet larger than anything the Velthari Empire had ever assembled? This has to be some kind of mistake, he said, but even as the words left his mouth, He knew they weren't true. The sensor readings were too consistent, too widespread to be equipment malfunctions or false alarms. Another alarm sounded. This one coming from the Velthari homeworld itself. Zixthera's assistant, a female officer named Valkyra, turned to face him with terror in her eyes. "Admiral, you need to see this. We're receiving reports from our home system." The main display changed to show the beautiful blue and green world. Where Velthara civilization had begun millions of years ago, it was the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy, surrounded by orbital defense platforms, energy shields, and hundreds of the Empire's most powerful warships. Nothing had ever threatened the homeworld. Nothing should have been able to get close to it, but there they were. Human ships, dozens of them, positioned in perfect formation around the planet like a deadly necklace. They had somehow penetrated defenses that had never been breached, appearing in the heart of Velthari space. Without triggering a single alarm? Impossible, Zixthera whispered. "Our homeworld defenses are impenetrable. We have energy barriers that could stop entire fleets. We have sensor networks that can detect a single ship from 10 star systems away. The humans aren't using energy-based propulsion or weapons," Velcro replied, her voice shaking. "Our sensors are designed to detect plasma drives, fusion reactors, energy weapons, all the technology that every advanced species uses. But the humans are still using primitive kinetic systems that our sensors aren't calibrated to detect." Suddenly, every communication screen in the command center activated simultaneously. The face that appeared on them was human, an older woman with gray hair and stern eyes that seemed to look directly at Zixthera through the screen. Her uniform was simple compared to the elaborate robes that Velthari officers wore, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who held absolute power. "I am Admiral Soyoung of the United Earth Space Force," the woman said, her voice calm and clear, despite the magnitude of what she was announcing. "I am speaking to all military and civilian leaders of the Velthari Empire. You have exactly 1 hour to respond to our demands." Zixthera felt his hearts, all three of them, beating rapidly as he listened to words that no alien species had ever dared speak to the Empire. First, Admiral Soyoung continued. "You will immediately release all human prisoners currently held in your detention facilities. Second, you'll withdraw all Velthari vessels and monitoring stations from Earth's solar system and surrounding territories. Third, you will officially recognize human sovereignty over our claimed space and establish formal diplomatic relations with our government." The human admiral paused, letting her words sink in before delivering the final part of her message. "You have 1 hour to broadcast your acceptance of these terms across all Velthari communication networks. If you refuse, or if you attempt any hostile action against human vessels, we will consider it an act of war. We hope you choose wisely." Transmission ended, leaving the Velthari command center in stunned silence. For several long moments, nobody spoke. The idea that a primitive species would dare to make demands of the mighty Velthari Empire was so shocking that their minds couldn't fully process it. Meanwhile, aboard the Shadow Strike, Taman stood on the bridge next to his brother, watching as human ships across the galaxy prepared for the most important moment in their species' history. His head still ached from the alien experiments, but he felt strong enough to be here for this historic event. "All stations report ready," announced Communications Officer Ji-Ho. "We're receiving confirmation from every human vessel in the operation. Everyone is in position and waiting for the signal." Captain Hyanwu looked at his younger brother with pride. "Taman, what you went through in that alien prison gave us the intelligence we needed to make this possible. Your sacrifice helped save our entire species." Taman nodded, feeling a mixture of pain and determination. Those experiments they performed, they were trying to understand how humans think differently from other species. They couldn't figure out why we're willing to sacrifice ourselves for each other, why we never give up even when facing impossible odds. "And that's exactly why we're going to win," Hyanwu replied. "They may have better technology, but they don't understand the human spirit." At exactly 60 minutes after Admiral Soyoung's ultimatum, every human ship in the galaxy simultaneously deactivated their stealth systems. The effect was spectacular. Thousands of vessels materialized out of empty space like a magic trick. performed on a galactic scale. Their hulls gleamed with adaptive armor that shifted colors like living metal, and their weapons arrays powered up with the quiet efficiency of human engineering. Back on the Velthari command station, Admiral Zexthera watched this display with growing understanding and horror. As reports flooded in from across the Empire, he finally realized the magnitude of his species' mistake. "We became too comfortable," he said quietly to Velkara. "We had the best technology in the galaxy, so we stopped innovating, stopped thinking creatively. We assumed that technological superiority was all we needed." "But the humans?" Velkara asked. "The humans never had superior technology," Zexthera replied. "So they had to become superior strategists. They had to learn to be creative, adaptable, unpredictable. While we were perfecting our existing systems, they were inventing entirely new ways to solve problems." He looked at the tactical displays, showing human ships positioned throughout Velthari space. Each vessel was exactly where it needed to be to cause maximum disruption to the Empire's military coordination. It was a masterpiece of strategic planning that had taken years to execute. "They turned our own arrogance against us," he continued. "We thought we were studying them, but they were actually studying us. We thought we were superior, so we ignored the threat they represented until it was too late." For the first time in the Empire's history, the Velthari faced an enemy that had outwitted them completely. The humans had achieved something no species in galactic history had ever managed. They had surprised a technologically superior enemy so thoroughly that resistance seemed impossible. The question now was whether the Empire would choose to fight a war they couldn't win, or accept that the galaxy had changed forever. Retried it. The 1-hour deadline passed in tense silence across the galaxy. Admiral Zexthera stood on his command bridge, staring at the communication panel that could have broadcast acceptance of the human demands to every corner of the Velthari Empire. His finger hovered over the transmission button, but pride and centuries of imperial arrogance held him back. "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "the Imperial Council has sent their response. They refuse to negotiate with primitives. They're ordering all fleets to engage and destroy the human vessels." Zexthera closed his 4 eyes in despair. He had hoped that wisdom would prevail, that his people would recognize the impossible situation they faced, but the Council, safe in their palace chambers, far from the front lines, couldn't accept that their technological superiority might not be enough. "Send the signal," he said with heavy resignation. "Ships are to engage human targets. May the ancestors forgive us for what we're about to unleash." Within minutes, Velthari warships throughout the galaxy began moving toward the human vessels that surrounded their worlds. The aliens still believed that their superior numbers and advanced weapons would carry the day, even against an enemy that had already demonstrated the ability to appear wherever they wanted. But the humans had been preparing for this moment for years. Lieutenant Dong Hein sat in the cockpit of his fighter, the Yu's Wasp, as it detached from the belly of a human carrier ship. Around him, dozens of other small fighters launched simultaneously, their pilots ready to prove that size didn't always matter in space combat. "But remember your training," came the voice of his squadron leader over the radio. "We're not trying to destroy their big ships head-on. We're mosquitoes, and mosquitoes don't attack elephants directly. We annoy them, confuse them, and make them make mistakes." Donghan smiled grimly as he watched the approaching Velthari fleet. The alien ships were massive, beautiful vessels that gleamed with energy shields and bristled with plasma weapons. Each one was 10 times larger than his small fighter and carried enough firepower to destroy a city. But they had weaknesses that only human pilots could exploit. The first wave of Velthari's ships opened fire with their plasma cannons, filling space with deadly energy bolts. But the human fighters didn't fly in formation like conventional military aircraft. Scattered in all directions, their movements completely unpredictable and chaotic. "Target their sensor arrays," Donghan called to his wingmen as they dove between 2 massive alien battleships. "If they can't see us clearly, they can't hit us." The human fighters were small and fast, powered by compact fusion reactors that allowed them to change direction instantly. They flew like insects around the huge alien ships, darting between weapon turrets and striking at critical systems with precision kinetic weapons. The Velthari found themselves in a nightmare scenario. Their weapons were designed to engage large enemy ships at long range, not tiny fighters that moved like nothing they had ever encountered. Every time they tried to target a human fighter, it would suddenly change course in a way that seemed to defy physics. "How are they moving like that?" demanded a Velthari fleet commander as he watched human fighters dance around his flagship. "Their flight patterns make no sense." What the aliens didn't understand was that human pilots had learned to fly in Earth's chaotic atmosphere, dealing with unpredictable weather, wind shear, and gravitational anomalies. Compared to flying through a thunderstorm or navigating between mountains, dodging plasma bolts in the vacuum of space was almost relaxing. Meanwhile, aboard the Shadow Strike, Chief Engineer Minho was orchestrating a different kind of warfare. While the fighters kept the alien ships distracted, he was launching cyber attacks against the Velthari computer networks. "Their entire fleet operates on automated systems," he explained to Captain Hyanwu as lines of code scrolled across his screens. "They've become so dependent on artificial intelligence that most of their ships barely need crews. But AI systems have vulnerabilities that organic minds don't." Minno's computer viruses were works of art, designed specifically to exploit the logical, predictable thinking patterns of alien artificial intelligence. While human minds could be creative and illogical, AI systems always followed programmed rules, and rules could be hacked. "Virus deployment successful," Minho reported with satisfaction. "Their command networks are starting to fragment. Ships are losing communication with their fleet commanders." Across the battlefield, Velthari vessels began to behave erratically. Some stopped responding to orders from their admirals. Others started targeting their own allies by mistake. The carefully coordinated alien fleet formations dissolved into chaos as individual ships found themselves cut off from central command. "What's happening to our ships?" Amarl Zexthera demanded, as he watched his fleet tear itself apart on the tactical displays. "It appears to be some kind of computer malfunction," his technical officer replied, frantically working at his console. "Our AI systems are receiving conflicting instructions, so they can't determine which orders are legitimate." Zexthara realized with growing horror that the humans had found yet another weakness in Velthari technology. While the Empire had perfected automation and artificial intelligence, they had become vulnerable to exactly the kind of creative, unpredictable attack that only human minds could devise. The battle lasted only 3 hours. When it ended, the mighty Velthari Empire found itself completely defeated by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. Their ships were disabled, their command networks were compromised, and their military formations were in complete disarray. On the bridge of the Shadow Strike, brothers Hyanwu and Taemin stood side by side, watching as Velthari vessels throughout the galaxy transmitted their surrender. The younger brother, still bearing scars from his alien captivity, leaned against the older one who had risked everything to save him. "We did it," Taemin said quietly. "We actually defeated them." "We did more than defeat them," Hyanwu replied. "We proved that intelligence and determination can overcome any technological advantage. We showed the galaxy that the underdogs can win if they're smart enough and brave enough." As they watched, human ships began escorting disabled Velthari vessels away from Earth's solar system. The blue and green planet that had given birth to humanity was finally safe from alien interference. But the consequences of their victory were spreading far beyond. Earth Communications Officer Jiho approached them with excitement written across his face. "Captains, you need to see this. We're receiving messages from dozens of species throughout the galaxy. Word of our victory is spreading, and other worlds are starting to rebel against Velthari rule." The main screen filled with transmission after transmission from alien species that had been conquered by the Empire decades or centuries ago. Some looked like giant insects, others resembled walking plants, and a few were so strange that human eyes could barely comprehend their forms. But they all shared the same message. They wanted to be free. "The Zephyrian Collective wishes to learn from the human example," Jiho translated from one message. "The crystalline worlds are declaring independence from the Empire. The Aquatic Federation is asking for human military advisors to help them resist Velthari occupation forces. Timon stared at the screen in amazement. Our victory isn't just about humanity anymore. We've started something bigger. We've proven that rebellion is possible, Hanwu agreed. For thousands of years, the Velthari Empire conquered species by convincing them that resistance was hopeless. But we've shown that technological superiority isn't everything. Given hope to every underdog in the galaxy. As the Shadow Strike began its journey back to Earth, the brothers watched their homeworld grow larger in the view screen. The blue oceans and white clouds looked exactly the same as they always had, but everything had changed. Earth was no longer just humanity's home. It had become a symbol of hope for oppressed species everywhere. Admiral Soyoung's voice came over the ship's communication system, addressing the entire human fleet. Today, we have secured not just our survival, but our place among the stars. We have shown the galaxy that human courage, creativity, and determination cannot be conquered by any technology. We return home not as the same species that left, but as the guardians of freedom for all those who refuse to surrender to tyranny. The Velthari Empire, built on the assumption that advanced technology guaranteed eternal dominance, was crumbling. As subject worlds declared their independence one by one, the age of technological imperialism was ending, replaced by something new. An age where intelligence, adaptability, the refusal to give up could overcome any odds. As Earth filled the view screen, Yanwu put his arm around his brother's shoulder. They had both survived the impossible, and together they had helped change the fate of the galaxy. Sometimes the most primitive approach really was the most effective one.